Hey guys, Joe here, the Joe Madden Sports Podcast. I am joined by Gilles Gallant, Dawg in the house. Welcome to the show, FTN Network. How's the day treating you so far?
It's been good, Joe. It's been a good week. Sun is shining. I mean, we're both in Canada, right? So it's the time of year where you can start to be a little more positive and optimistic just because we're not dealing with the harsh realities of winter sometimes. So, yeah, no, it's good. And it's a great time to bet. I'm really happy to, kind of start to get wrapped up with NFL and start to get back into it as NBA wraps up as well. So, yeah, awesome week today. Happy to be on the show.
Excellent. Yeah, knock on wood on that weather comment because we know in Canada we could get snow at any second. You just never know what's going to happen here. But let's talk some NBA today. We have a game 6 on the board. We know the Warriors have been struggling on the road. Can Boston push this to game 7, or what are you looking at in this one?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at Warriors to close it out tonight. To be honest, I think it's actually a little bit more of the flip side. Now, I will say, obviously, we've seen the Warriors struggle in some series on the road prior to the Celtics series. But in games 3 and games 4, they were only trailing by 4 points entering the fourth quarter. They ended up winning game 4 as well and leading entering the fourth quarter as well. So I feel like right now the Celtics offense just is not being consistent enough to trust them to be able to win tonight. You can go look at the numbers if you just want to look at the home and road splits. Like the way that they're shooting at home, it's closer to like 35 to 36%. That's for 3-point percentage. For field goal percentage, it's around 44%. But on the road, those numbers actually increase. They're actually playing better on the road as opposed to playing at TD Garden. So I think a lot of people are going to be looking at Boston to want to extend this series to 7. I think the Warriors championship experience, I think they're going to be able to close it out tonight. So Warriors money line at plus 150 is one of my favorite bets tonight.
That is a beautiful way to take this. We know the Boston Celtics really struggled with turnovers in the last game. What are you expecting player-wise out of the Warriors? Are you expecting a strong defensive game? Are you expecting a bounce back from Steph Curry? What are you looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't bet any Steph props just because you know that he is going to have a bounce back game, but the books know this too. And I think a lot of bettors are already kind of on this angle. So you're already losing quite a bit of value compared to where we saw the props when they opened up right after game 5. So I've seen a lot of people right now. One of the most popular props tonight is Steph Curry over 4.5 threes because he went 0 for 9 in the last game. And the last time that he went 0 for from 3-point range was like over 3 years ago when he hit double-digit threes in the following game. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to pull that off again going into Boston. But that being said, I do think he is going to have a little bit of a bounce-back game, which is crazy to think that a player who scores 20 points in the previous game needs a bounce back. But that's just how good Steph Curry has been in the finals. But I will say that my favorite prop right now, I have both a Warriors prop and a Celtics prop for player props tonight. My favorite prop for the Warriors is actually about Kevon Looney. I like to bet on the peripheries. I feel like we can get better value on those as opposed to looking at, the starters like a Klay Thompson or Draymond Green. But I'm actually looking at a rebounding prop. I'm looking at Kevon Looney to have another 10 rebounds in this series because we've seen so far throughout the series, even though the Warriors do lead, they've been getting out rebounded, especially on the offensive glass. And right now, Kevon Looney, part of the reason why I'm betting it is because of the odds shift. When he was listed in the starting lineup in the opening couple of games, his 10-plus rebounds, especially coming off the Mavericks series where he was just a rebounding machine, you'd probably get it at like plus 120, plus 130 to get 10 or more rebounds. But now he's coming off as one of the first guys off the bench to take over for Otto Porter, and he's coming in around the 7.5-minute mark, and you're able to get 10-plus rebounds at like plus 425 at a lot of different sports books, at least over plus 400, because of the fact that he's not in the starting lineup anymore. And I think that that's too much of a shift, especially with what we've seen from the Warriors game plan about how they can't play small ball all the time to the point where they're going to get exposed by guys like Robert Williams and Al Horford. So they have to have size out there. And I'm seeing as well that I think part of the reason why we saw such an odd shift from closer to plus 175 for 10 or more rebounds to about plus 400 or more isn't also just because he's not being in the starting lineup. I think there's a little bit too much recency bias on what we saw in game 5 and how he got 3 quick fouls in the opening half. he has not had more than 4 fouls in any game, playoff game, except for game 5. So I'm not willing to say that that's going to happen again. And they need his size. They need him to be able to be out there setting screens. And the fact that right now that the Celtics, just again talking about how their field goal percentage and their 3-point percentage has actually dropped at home as opposed to playing on the road, that should lead to more rebounding opportunities. And Looney, for example, he's playing like 16 less minutes than guys like Andrew Wiggins or Draymond Green, but he's second on the team in rebounds and second on the team in rebounding chances so far in the series. So I think Kevon Looney at plus 400 or plus 425, what I got it at, I think it's a steal tonight in this game.
Absolutely. It just completely screams value there. I like it. I'm going to be tailing you on that. Are you looking at anything for Jason Tatum? His points, rebounds, and assists are so high tonight at 41 and a half.
Yeah, and so far you're seeing early steam, Joe, on the under on that because it was at 41 and a half. I think it might be down to 40 and a half now, but at least right now from what I'm seeing from the different sports books is that you're looking at maybe minus 120, minus 125 for an under on that. And to be quite honest, I think it's a fair number, especially with what Tatum has done from an assist and rebounding standpoint. I'm fairly certain he leads the Celtics in rebounds per game in the series. But for me, like now, again, I will say it back against the wall, game 6 against Milwaukee on the road, different circumstance. But I mean, he had the best game he ever had in his career with 46 points, double-digit rebound. Like he was a machine in that game. I'm just not willing to bet on that at the over 4. Like I would rather just look at a rebounds prop or maybe a double-double prop. But even the double-double props for Tatum have started to go down. Like, for example, in game 5, he was plus 250 for a double-double. In this game, he's like plus 125, plus 130. That's a little too much of a shift for that. So I'd be looking, at trying to find different ways to be able to get plus money odds if you can. But I think with Tatum, I'm going to steer clear of that. And I'm actually going to be looking at his teammate, the 6th man right now for the Celtics. I'm going to be looking at Derek White to actually have 2 or more 3-pointers tonight. A bit of a safer pick. It's at minus 115. I generally am more of a plus money better, but at the same time, to me, this screamed value because he averages 2 3-pointers made per game in the finals. And for the playoffs, it's just under 2 3-pointers made per game. 5 of the last 7 games overall, he's hit 2 or more. Also, people like to look at the bounce back games, like they're looking at the Steph Curry props or, looking at that bounce back angle. But the same thing applies to Derek White. He went 0 from 3-point in game 5, but in the last 3 games where he's missed every one of his 3-point shots, he hit 2 or more in the following game in those 3 occurrences. And then, of course, I track these odds just game to game to kind of see what we're seeing. And after game 1, where he exploded, especially in the second half of the game, you were able to only get like minus 145 for over 1.5 3-pointers made in both game 2 and then game 3, game 4, same thing. As we saw this because when it was back at home, the odds were right around the plus minus 140, minus 145 mark. Well, he has a dud in game 5. Now we're getting it at minus 115. For me, that screams, okay, I'm going to try to take this value because around the same case, Al Horford is around plus 110, but Al Horford just hasn't been looking for his shot when he's out there. And there is more of a higher probability that he may not try to stretch the floor and play out on the perimeter. He may try to try to control the paint a little bit more and try to score there. So for me, I felt Derek White, especially with how poor he looked in game 5, I think we could see a nice little bounce back effort for him in game 6. So over 1.5 3-pointers made at minus 115 is my favorite Celtics player prop tonight.
Definitely a great way to take that. Now, any thoughts on Andrew Wiggins for this game? We know he had a stellar performance in the last, getting 26 points. He has a number here coming in at 18 and a half, juice to the under. Do you think we see a strong performance out of him again?
I think it really depends on if they put 2 on the ball or not. If the Celtics go with the mindset of we need to make sure that Steph Curry doesn't score more than 25 points, there's going to be easy dump offs for Wiggins and others to score. And if that is the case, then Wiggins could easily put up 20 points in this circumstance because as well, it's not just the volume because he is technically 3rd on the team in shots per game, just behind Klay and Steph. But at the minutes alone and the defensive assignment is part of the reason why you want to look at that because he could be out there just getting some nice easy transition buckets. His free throws have been going up as the series has gone on. I probably wouldn't play it just because I feel like he just literally had probably the best game he's ever had in his career. I'm not really sure he can add to that. But maybe looking at his rebounding prop again, For the Warriors, he leads the team in rebounds per game in the finals, rebounding chances as well. And this is over Draymond Green, over Kevon Looney. So as well, again, going back to how the Celtics have played at home, they haven't really played a decent game at home probably since the Milwaukee series. Like, again,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they haven't looked good in those circumstances against like Miami, for example, but even Miami was a stronger defense, more similar to what the Warriors do. So for myself, it's not to say that I would talk anybody out of a Wiggins prop. I just worry that line is now juiced to the point and also the line itself, like you were getting it at 15 and a half, maybe 16 and a half at the start of the series. Once we're getting into the 18 and a half mark, at that point, it starts to get a little dicey. So I probably wouldn't play that in this circumstance.
Absolutely. You're paying quite a bit of juice there as well on that. Okay, so what's happening on your shows this week? You've got Touchdown Town, if I can talk, and Dog of the Day afternoons. What you got going on?
Yeah, so Dog Day afternoon, you've appeared on that show. It happens every Wednesday and Friday on the FTN network at 1 p.m. Eastern, where I give out my best bets of the day. I'll bring on a sports handicapper like yourself or other people in the industry just to talk about what their favorite plays are for the night and just what they're seeing from different things, like whether it be the NBA draft that's coming up next week or the NFL season that's coming up in September. As for Touchdown Town is off the air for now, just until the latter part of the summer as we get closer to the NFL season. And the purpose of that show is I air it every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, just to give you a couple hours before kickoff for those 1 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Eastern games on Sundays, where myself and my co-host, Brendan Dawg, we give out our best touchdown bets of the day. And one of the things that I'm most known for on social media and in betting is betting on anytime touchdown scores in the NFL. I've had a lot of success with that over the last few years. It's the market that I think I know the best inside and out. And I just use it as a purpose and a platform to be able to educate people on how to bet these, the type of bets that we're looking at, why we bet certain guys, and one of the things that I pride myself on is I like to bet guys over plus 200. Generally, I don't really like to bet guys under the plus 200 for touchdown scores, because a lot of those guys that you would mention that are in the plus 120 to plus 150 range or minus odds, they don't hit as often as you think as the guys that are in the plus 200 to plus 400 range. They actually hit quite similarly, but your upside is capped on what you can earn from profits if you're just only betting those style of touchdown scores. And NFL and football is so volatile and finicky, like your star player could get hurt on one play. It's not really worth it from that standpoint if you're betting touchdown scores regularly like I am to bet guys that are lower than plus 200. Plus, I also have a little bit of an issue. Like, I feel like if you play fantasy football, and I feel like a majority of people who follow and bet football, they play fantasy football. If somebody is out there giving a touchdown score and it's like Cooper Kupp at like minus 160, like, I'm not saying that you can't, like, Cooper Kupp wouldn't score. Cooper Kupp is amazing. The point that I'm trying to make is, do you really need somebody to tell you to bet on Cooper Kupp to score a touchdown? Like, again, I'm not saying that some people don't. Some people, they're new to betting and that's fine. But if you're regularly betting this stuff and you're tailing people who are telling you to bet on somebody that's minus 160, like for a touchdown score, I'm not really sure if you needed somebody to tell you that. So that's one of the things that I pride myself for Touchdown Town is I'm trying to find guys that are scoring touchdowns that you wouldn't necessarily think of, and the type of angles that I look at to be able to educate yourself. So that way, when you get into this circumstance, whether it be you or anybody who's watching, that way they can know these lessons and know what to look for when they start to bet on these markets.
Absolutely. I can't wait for this show to kick off. You're kicking off for preseason?
Yeah, preseason not as much, because again, part of the issue with that is you have no idea from a depth chart standpoint who's going to be out there, especially like in the first week of preseason where the starters just put on their jerseys just for like show. Like, they might play like one series and then they're out. Whereas, there's a lot of people who are very knowledgeable that know, the second, third, fourth guys on the depth chart for every position. And those guys would be pretty successful. I'm willing to admit that I'm not very successful with that. So I generally wait until we get to the actual games, week one, where the starters are going to be out there, the injury reports inside and out. And then that way you can make an accurate assessment of what the odds are telling you.
Week one cannot come soon enough, and it's going to go in a blink for sure. I want to thank you so much for joining me here on the Joe Madden Sports Podcast. Can you let everyone know first where to find you on socials before we finish?
Sure, yeah. So the handle's right there on the screen, but it's at GDawg5000, GDAWG 5000. That's where you can find all my content that I write for ftnbets.com or stuff that I do for FTN Network eventually makes it to that timeline. But you could also go to ftnbets.com to find any of my written content. You could also go to the FTN Network YouTube page. That's where all of my shows are, such as Dog Day Afternoon, Touchdown Town, or any of the other cool shows that we do, like Mean Streets with Chris Meany. You've been on that show before as well.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of great content coming out of the FTN Network right now. So go subscribe to that YouTube channel.
Yeah, make sure you guys do. Thank you so much again for joining me. Have a wonderful day and can't wait to have you back on.
Thanks, Joe. Have a great day.
Thank you.